Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. Our focus continues today on the latest developments at the foreign exchange market. I'm being joined on the program by the Chief Executive of Financial Derivatives Company Limited. He's also an economist, Mr. Bismarck Rwani, and Mr. Oji Udemezue. He is a financial and management consultant. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program this morning.
Good morning.
So let's look at it's over 24 hours since the central bank released that circular. Has the market reacted?
First and foremost, the central bank cleared all the demand yesterday. They opened the trading at 196 and closed it at about 199, and they met everybody's requirements. So some confidence was restored in the market. The other impact was that rather than everybody coming together on Monday and Wednesday, putting all the naira together, a very inefficient system, the auction system, and then going back, money was not sterilized. So you're having a much higher velocity of circulation, which means that trades and transactions are better placed. Thirdly, a certain amount of certainty. There was first uncertainty, and then certainty has come into the market. The reserves are below $33 billion now, but that's not the issue. The issue is that the market, a certain amount of uncertainty has been taken away from the market, and that also reduces the price. So as we go along, we begin to see how the market works. These are early days, just one day, but the stock market was oblivious to the event, and investors are pretty calm. The anxiety is pretty much over.
Mr. Udemezue, do you share the same sentiment that the anxiety is pretty much over?
Harriet, I would just first of all want to say a big congratulations to the central bank governor for taking this bold step at this point in time. We couldn't have afforded this continued bleeding, the way we're going. Just a week ago, barely more than a week ago, we discussed here, and I made it very clear that we could not continue to, defend naira the way we're doing, depleting the foreign exchange reserves. And as if the central bank governor listened, this policy came out, and I'm quite impressed that they're taking this step, even though for me it's late in the day, because as of December 2013, the foreign exchange reserve was at about $43.6 billion. And just for this defense of naira, we lost almost 10 billion, in this defense, up till, when we took this action. So I think this bleeding will stop, and the whole speculation that, has been going with it has stopped, as Mayoga has rightly said. Once you create speculative, environment, then the price can never be real. But now the speculation has been removed. We're going to see a price discovery. Over time, we'll see where it will settle. People had thought that with this announcement, maybe by now, dollar will be, trading at 230, 240. Somewhere it will settle. It might not be, it might not have settled right now. It's still going to settle, but I know that the heavens will not fall.
But Mr. Rwani, there have been indications, especially from international and analysts, that the naira might hit a level of between 215 and 235 naira to the dollar. In that kind of situation, where would that leave, this policy now that has come out?
Well, there are models for determining currency values, and those models include so many things, which includes the reserve cover. But one variable that has not been taken into consideration, the more expensive a product, the lower the quantity demanded. What you've done, essentially, is to move the price of a dollar for 20% of the transactions from 168 to 198. Definitely, if anything goes up by that value, and that's about another 10% more expensive, you must witness a reduction in the demand. That reduction in demand means that the price at which it's going to be offered will begin to appreciate. Because when something is too expensive, people bulk, and now then it has to become cheaper. So let us say, for example, the central bank sold at 199 yesterday. And then today, because people were desperate, they bought at 205. Then the next day, because it's an interbank market, because they don't have money, they paid 205. People now buy at 199. If you bought the dollars at 205, and I bought at 199 24 hours later, you will have no choice but to sell at 199. You take a 6 naira loss. So speculative activity reduces because of the frequency of intervention and the fact that there's an effective supply. I don't buy the fact that rates will exaggerate themselves in the wrong direction. They will initially, but then they'll correct themselves. And that's the important thing.
Well, the CBN, this CBN RDA's forex window was actually intended to support the industrial and other real sector activities, to be able to access cheaper forex. Now, would this policy not create a major problem for industrialists in the economy and consequently affect job creation, Mr. Odemiswe?
In my opinion, what we have been doing over the past years was actually subsidizing importers and punishing exporters. We have been depleting our foreign reserve just to intervene in the market without any clear benefit to the economy. The economy has not got any better for this policy.
Actually said.
And, you see it has driven a lot of bad practices, bad behavior, round-tripping, speculative demand, spurious demand, according to CBN, and that's the reality. And then many banks, well, sorry to say, abandoned the real intermediation, which is just getting money from the support sector and giving to the deficit sector to create economic activities that will fuel employment generation, economic growth, and all of that. And then most banks have found it convenient to trade, because once we used to have trade, markets where you have prices, of course, recently now, how do I put it, spanning between 20 to 30 naira difference. You have official rates at between 159 to 176. You now have, interbank rate at 203 as at February 12. And then the parallel market rate is still, as of yesterday, 214, 215. We haven't talked about that, because the challenge is still to see how to meet through the interbank market now, to meet the demand in the real parallel market. We're supposed to buy, dollar at 215 as of today.
So how can that demand be actually met by this?
I think CBN, the policy should not stop at just closing RDAs and WIDAs. There is need for closer monitoring of what goes on in the bank, even including the supply. He just mentioned the supply side of it. CBN just released a circular again yesterday, reminding all dealers and authorized dealers that export proceeds for oil transactions must still be reported within 90 days, and for non-oil, within 180 days. Just a reminder, so you know. And if you don't do that, there are penalties that go with it, because what you may find now is that some exporters may be getting very reluctant to report their export process. And as long as proceeds continue to come, and then, the supply is available, then we'll see some sanity over time.
Okay, you see, the thing about exchange rate management, what everybody has concentrated on is what rate, 205, 215. What is much more strategic is the fact that there's an exchange rate determining mechanism that has emerged. You have markets move from strict allocation to wholesale auctions to retail auctions to interbank to full convertibility. When you have a more market-driven exchange rate mechanism, which is what has happened, it also complements trade policy. Don't forget that Nigeria just signed up and adopted a common external tariff in West Africa. There's the WTO thing. All of these things come together to create what you call convertibility and reduction of distortions in economic activity, and leads to a much more efficient market. So in the end, you'll find that the tools of economic management, which are announced by the budget office on the fiscal side, the tools for monetary stability announced by the central bank, send signals to investors, both domestic and international, who have confidence. And once confidence begins to get restored, you'll find that the rate begins to be stable. Stable at what? Stability itself is not an objective. Stable at an equilibrium point. And so I don't worry too much about what the rate is. But the fact is that as long as the central bank is intervening, if the demand is too high, the price increases. That means the currency depreciates. If not, you go the other way. The subsidy that is given to manufacturers means that they are reverse taxes. So you are not making them competitive. If you remove that subsidy, right, they become competitive. Because there are some sectors, don't forget, only 10 or 15% of all the transactions were on this 168 window, which means that 85% of Nigerians were already paying the 205 or whatever. So and those guys who were being subsidized were typically, what you do, you order goods of $10 million. You bring in only $5 million worth of the goods. You bring $5 million cash back and sell it at 205. And you make an average of about maybe 300 million naira a week from doing nothing. It's better than selling cocaine, right? And that's what has happened. So when you take this, you actually reduce malpractice to zero. And the economy benefits from the money that stays within the system.